Well, first time we came down, my son and I, we went to the original museum, which is just up here at the corner. And you come into this, and it's a whole factor of 10 greater in size and scope of what it covers. Earl, this is his love of his life. I mean, he's really put a lot of time and effort into it. He's got a great staff, so this day has been long in coming, and I'm happy that we're here to see it happen, and it'll go well today. The weather's great.
How many of you have been through the museum already? Raise your hand. All right, you can go home now. I do have to ask this question, and it's really rather dangerous. What do you think? That bad, huh? It's been an incredible journey, folks. And well, I don't want to get into my speech. I'll talk. I only have an hour and a half planned. Okay, if I could have the Grissom family just kind of step out this way. Brandon, if you would come over here and stand, and Sean, if you would take up the other side there, and maybe I could have you come over and stand here. And okay, I think we're all in place here. I've got to use my wife's line. She said we threw a party and 450 people came. I think that's pretty cool. I won't keep you very long. I do encourage you to kind of split up today, some of you upstairs, some of you down here, in order for us to handle the crowd, but you all look pretty civilized to me. It's been quite a journey. We've been working on this facility for a long time, been working on it in earnest for 5 years. Many people, including me, didn't think it was ever going to happen, actually. But through the help of some very dedicated gentlemen, who we will talk about later, and through God's blessings, I think it's a God thing. We walk in there now and we're kind of blown away by it. It really kind of amazes us. We have brought this to fruition. And we want you to understand this. This is not my museum. It is not our administration's museum. It's not really even Bonne Terre's museum. This is a regional thing. This is for all of you. And that's why it's here. We want this to make a difference to our community and to our region. And there is some work toward maybe getting a state space day. And I think it would be really incredible if that were stationed right here. I don't know if we'll qualify for that or not. But that could happen. That could happen. So without further ado, I would like to introduce some very, very important people. Guys, could you come up here and turn around? We have members of the Grissom family today. Gus is our patron saint. The Grissom family, we have unashamedly thrown their name around everywhere we've gone. We owe them lots of money that they will never get. But we appreciate them so much. And we're honoring the Gus Grissom, one of our American icons, and his sacrifice and this family's sacrifice for our nation. In the words of Gus, space exploration is worth the risk of life, and he had found that out firsthand. We hope that you're honored by our effort, and we hope especially that your father is honored by our effort. This is Scott Grissom, Gus's son, Lowell, his brother, Bobette, Lowell's lovely wife, and Sue, the daughter of Lowell and Bobette. So without further ado, we're going to let Lowell, you can't handle scissors, right? Okay, we're going to let him, as long as he doesn't run with the scissors, we're okay. So where are you, Leah? Okay, turn around here, guys.
Get behind the ribbon and we'll put it.
Yeah, that might be a good thing. Okay, so here you are. Easy, Lowell. Easy. No. Blood's hard to clean up. Okay. No, it will not cut. You're just going to have to pretend here, okay? Brandon, you know. Oh, by the way, I meant to introduce Brandon Hubbard, mayor of our lovely city. Sean Kay, city administrator. You'll have to introduce yourself. I'm sorry. Yeah, and
Andrea Richard.
Andy Richard.
Hey,
Say my name.
3.
Stop it! She got a hold of the script, didn't she? Okay, all right. That's, no, I'm not going to say that. All right. So, 3, 2, 1. Let her go. Very good. Round of applause. The Grissom Center is now officially open. Hold it back. Sean, when it gets someone, pull it back, hold it back.
All right.
You already.
So, what do you think? Yeah, great day. It is, great day. But I do want you to know, I have received a lot of personal thank yous today, but I want you to understand something very, very clear. This is a team effort. We have had a lot of people involved in this. Yes, I started out many years ago in 2003 with the idea of creating a museum. The first person that knew that was Lowell Grissom. I told Lowell that, Lowell, I'm going to start a museum. And Lowell looked at me with disdain. And then I told him that I was going to put it in Bonne Terre, Missouri. And he said, where? And then the next thing he told me was, there's no money in it. And he was exactly 100% correct. But you know what? It's not about the money. It's about you. It's about our future. It's about people. It's about doing noble things. We like to say at the museum that the museum is about more than the artifacts of man's greatest adventure. It is, excuse me, that was not politically correct, humankind's greatest adventure. You're welcome. Okay. I'm learning. I'm old, but I can still learn. Okay. But it's about more than that. It's about a way of thinking. It's about thinking out of the box. Actually, the Space Museum and the Grissom Center is a testimony to that kind of thinking. It's about looking at what can be, figuring out how to do it, sometimes, overcoming the obstacles and just making it happen. Jim Lovell said, and he probably did it better than anybody I know. He said it better than anybody I know. He said it wasn't a miracle that took us to the moon. We just decided to go. And we just decided to put it in the Space Museum. So we are honored and humbled by your presence here today. Thank you very much. Give yourself a big hand. We think this is... we really think this is the start of something big. And I will give all the acknowledgments later. I don't want to forget anybody, for crying out loud. But I don't want to keep you any longer either. We have a gentleman here who is a phenomenal speaker. You can pay me later, Rob. Rob Kelso. Rob Kelso is a 35-year veteran of, where'd you work, Rob? NASA. Yeah, NASA, right. He is a 35-year veteran of Johnson Space Center. He was a flight controller, flight director for what, 12 years? Is that correct? That's right. 12 years. He was a flight director for 12 years. He has seen a lot. He has done a lot. He is an amazing man. He is the kind of person that America's back is made of. Was that good, Rob? I worked a while on that one. But anyway, Rob Kelso, he has a great presentation for us today, and I'm not going to wait any longer. Come on, Rob.
I was born in Texas, I went to school in Texas, I worked in Texas, so I'm one of the few that's not from Missouri here. Now that's kind of interesting because in talking with, I have loved talking with Earl and Dean and the heroes of McDonnell Douglas from the Mercury and Jimmy Page. Exchanging stories, and there was a big debate for years of whether it's Jim and I or Jim and E program. And so I figured it must be a Missouri thing because I've always called it Missouri. And others say Missouri. Well, I learned today that if you're in the city, it's Missouri. If you're in the rural area, it's Missouri. So since we're here in the rural area, I think it's safe to say we're safe to be Missouri. So tomato, tomato. I think you'll enjoy this. This is an interesting discussion of things that we have flown in space, animals and insects, but also why we have flown them. So as Earl said, I worked in mission control along with the astronauts that are here in the early days of shuttle. My last flight was STS-98 in 2000, the first launch of the laboratory to the space station. And I just had an absolute wonderful time. And a number of missions that I directed or flew involved many of these insects or animals that we're going to talk about. So who was the first man in space? Wow, you guys are so good.
Rob, take stuff and throw the microwave.
Okay. Is this better? I've not worn one of these things since the control center days.
Is that better? Okay.
So yeah, you're ready to get down. First human to go in space, one lap around the world, and then landed. So who was the first American in space? I wouldn't get that if I were in Texas. You were so smart here in Missouri. So yeah, Alan Shepard was the first American in space. Didn't go in orbit, but went up on the Mercury capsule on a Redstone booster. First American in space. Who was the first man on the moon? Right, Neil Armstrong in the second? That's all. Now it's interesting because when I talk to school kids, they think it was Neil Armstrong and then Buzz Lightyear. But the rumor has it is that Buzz Lightyear got his name from Buzz Aldrin. But it wasn't Buzz Lightyear that went to the moon. Buzz Aldrin was the second person to walk on the moon. So then it raises the question, what was the first animal in space? Before I get there, this is a list of the animals and insects that I'm going to talk about that have been in space or had a relationship in the space program, all except two. I put two in here that have not been in space. Which two? Look at that and see which two you think have not been. It's like Jeopardy. See, you got it? All right. So the two that have not been in space or related to the space program is the bunny rabbit and the cat. Anybody get those right? Oh, now Texas, they would have all gotten that right. So animals were really instrumental in the early days of spaceflight. The doctors at the time, in the 50s, in the beginnings of aerospace medicine, didn't know if you could breathe in space, if you could breathe, if you could swallow, if you could hear. Some predicted within 2 hours you would have physiological problems. They didn't know if you could see well at all, and in fact we're still seeing some problems with weightlessness affecting the shape of the eyeball. But before humans got into space, many animals paved the way in the area of aerospace medicine, specifically in helping us understand the effects of weightlessness in space on biological systems. So the first animal in space was... Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a dog. It was a Russian dog. It was the Russian female dog that they found off the street. Laika was her name. She was never meant to come back, but she was the first animal to go in space, and yeah, even though she didn't survive very long, she overheated in the spacecraft. The spacecraft had a thermal problem, and she died shortly after she got in space because of heating. But she breathed, she did have some food and water that they put on there with her, but she was never meant to get back. But we just celebrated the 60th anniversary of her launch in November. Isn't that amazing? 60 years, it's been 60 years ago since Laika flew into space. So, have we flown frogs in space? Some of these will be trick questions. But actually we have. We have flown frogs in space, and do you know why? In fact, it was back in Earl and Dean's time in preparation for Project Mercury, because the frog, the inner ear of the frog, is very similar to our inner ear. So it's called the frog otolith experiment. So the inner ear does what for us? What does the inner ear do for us? Balance. Exactly right. So as the astronauts will tell you, when we get into weightlessness, the fluid that's in the middle ear begins to circulate and shift, and then you get some vertigo, you get some nausea, you get some disorientation. And so when you spin around and around, or you go on a merry-go-round, around, and then you stop and, whoa, things are still spinning, that's because the fluid is still rotating within the middle ear. So the big bullfrog was launched a number of times to study the effects of weightlessness on the inner ear in preparation for manned spaceflight. Pigs in space. Have we flown pigs in space before? Miss Piggy? How many think we have flown pigs in space? Actually, I thought we did, but we haven't. So I actually learned this from Dean and Earl and the McDonald people. This is an amazing story. So there was actually drawings. I don't think Dean and Earl had seen this, but there were actually drawings of a flying pig in space in a Mercury type of capsule with a pig couch. And why? Why would we fly a pig in space or study pigs? Not organs, but backbone. So the backbone of the pig is very similar to ours. And so during liftoff and landing, you can experience many forces on your body. Now we call those forces gravities or G's. So when we're sitting in the auditorium here, how many G's are we experiencing? 1 G, right? So on the launch on shuttle, the engines were controlled to a level of no more than 3 gravities on the body. During Gemini and Apollo, sometimes it was up in the 5 and 6 G level. On re-entry from the moon, it was on the order of 8 Gs. So imagine if you are 8 people laying on top of you, right? How would you feel if 8 people are laying on top of you? Squish, right? Like my kids, they all pile on, and what do they say? Get off me, I can't breathe! Right? So you feel squished. So the pigs were used to study the effects of the G-forces and impacts from liftoff and landing relative to the backbone. So interesting here, they didn't really fly. So this is actually what I learned from our McDonnell Douglas heroes here in St. Louis. So they brought all these pigs in to study the effects of impacts on the human body for Mercury during landing. And they brought all these pigs in, and they took them to the high bay there at the Boeing facility in St. Louis, and they put them in this couch and raised them up high in the air and then dropped them. Right, Dean? And then when they hit, they would immediately butcher the pigs and study the backbone. Well, they were running into a problem. The pigs were dying. Not because of impact, but before that. They weren't able to breathe. So the McDonnell Douglas engineers said, we can't figure this out. So let's go get a pig farmer from Missouri, bring him over, and so they did. They brought this farmer over, and the farmer says, okay, yeah, I understand you're just an engineer. He says, go do your thing, and I'll watch, and I'll see what you're doing, and I'll see if I can help figure out why the pigs are having a problem. So the McDonnell Douglas engineers put the pig in the couch, and they're raising it up, and the pig's feet are up in the air, and the farmer says, you guys are crazy. What are you doing to these pigs? And the farmer says, don't you know that the pig's body is different than the human body? So the reason that you can lay down at night on your back and not suffocate is that your organs in your bodies are attached physically so that they don't compress on the lungs. The pigs, on the other hand, don't have that support mechanism in their body. So when you turn them upside down, their organs press into the lungs and they can't breathe, they suffocate. So the farmer says, you guys are a bunch of idiots. You're just aerospace engineers. They said, that's why we brought you in here. So he helped them figure out what was going on with the pigs. But they didn't fly, but they were instrumental in helping to understand the impacts of liftoff and landing on the human body, specifically to the spine. And of course, we have flown pigs, monkeys in space, right? Squirrel monkeys, Abel and Baker flew in space, and then 2 chimpanzees flew, Enos and Ham. And Ham went a similar flight to Alan Shepard, right, Dean? Went up and came back down, didn't go in orbit, but went up and flew and had an entry experience. Now, Ham flew the same mission that John Glenn would fly in February 1962. First American to orbit the Earth, went 3 orbits around the world in a Mercury capsule launched on an Atlas rocket. And Enos flew the same mission that John Glenn would fly, but before John Glenn. And here's a picture of him when he came back. Space chimp lives. That he survived the space. Now the interesting thing out of that was they gave Enos a number of tests to do because, again, the scientists didn't even know if you could think in space. Maybe your mind is so jumbled you can't compute, you can't see where you are, you can't think. So they trained Enos to do a number of tests. So they gave Enos 3 switches in the spacecraft and they would display a number of symbols. And then Enos would have to pick out which symbol did not match the others. And if he guessed correctly, he would get a banana pellet. If he didn't get correct the answer, if he guessed wrong, he would get an electric shock. So these are electric pads on the bottom of his feet. So we're thinking, that maybe we ought to use the same training technique for kids at school, right? Get the answer wrong. So they launch Enos into space, and he's doing pretty good. The little computer's working, he's getting his banana pellets, everything's fine right here. Then the little computer program that Dean and Earl and McDonald worked on, it broke. And whether he guessed the answer right or wrong, every time he got an electric shock. He was one pissed off monkey. Like he was really pissed off when he landed, He didn't get the banana pellet and he still got the shot, even though he got the answer right. But they were so important in having us understand the effects, since the chimpanzee has the same physiological system as ours. Now, the other interesting thing that I learned again from our heroes here at McDonnell Douglas is that the chimpanzees were also used to study the high-speed impact of reentry and launch on high-speed rocket sleds out at Holloman in New Mexico. And this one occurrence that I learned about from Dean was they put this chimpanzee in the rocket sled, but he didn't want to get in. Had no interest in getting in the seat of the rocket sled. I guess he kind of figured out what was coming. So the handler says, I've got this all figured out. I've got this banana here. So he gives the monkey the banana to get in the seat. And the monkey gets in the seat, takes the banana, and as soon as he's got the banana, he's got it in front of his face, boom, they hit the rocket And he takes off, and the banana goes right into his face. The monkey never took a banana out of the hand of a human again. You think they're not smart? So this was a student experiment. Have you seen an ant farm? Right? There's 2 pieces of glass with some dirt in the middle and then some sugar and food on top. And then you can watch the ants make tunnels and little caves or caverns where the queen is. And you can still see them build their ant colony that you can't see naturally above the surface. So a student had the idea of, I wonder if an ant can make an ant farm, make these tunnels in space, but without gravity. The student asked this question. So we actually flew this. How many of you think an ant can make the tunnels in that farm in space without gravity? How many of you think, ant can't do it, can't figure it out? You know what? They're pretty damn smart ants. They actually figured it out. You know how they did it? They made the tunnels smaller so that as they transverse through the tunnels, their 6 legs could touch, 3 on each side. So they made it so small that even though they were weightless, they could still touch the sides of the tunnels. Pretty smart ants figured it out. So this is a gel that was flown in space, and they actually made the tunnels. The ants figured it out, how to do it even without gravity. We've also flown cockroaches. I think we should fly a lot of these, like all. These are large Madagascar cockroaches, hissing cockroaches that flew on Bob Bigelow's inflatable module a number of years ago. They're still in orbit, which is a good thing. They can stay there. I'm not a big fan of cockroaches, but even cockroaches have flown in space. So this is really interesting. Turtles have been in space. So similar to Laika, which was a Russian dog, a Russian female dog, these were Russian turtles. And they actually flew on Zond 5, which flew around the moon in September of 1968. Undid Apollo 8 flight. December of 1968, right? So they actually flew around the moon before Borman, Lovell, and Anders flew around the moon in 1968. The turtles beat the humans to the moon. Even though turtles aren't real fast, right? They still beat mankind to the moon. So they actually survived, did really well, and then they, after coming around the moon, they landed in, not on land like most of the Soyuz rockets do. They landed in the Indian Ocean and were picked up, and the turtles were fine. But this is a picture of the 2 big Russian turtles that flew around the moon in September 1968. So turtles have even been in space. What about fish? You think we've flown fish in space? So the question was, do fish need gravity to swim? Now we see them in the aquarium, or if you're a diver, you've seen them in the water, right? And it seems like they float around pretty good under the water, right? It looks like they're weightless. Even we train astronauts in a big water tank to simulate weightlessness. We put ballast on them to make them not rise or not sink, to experience weightlessness to some level in practicing for spacewalks. So the question is, do fish need gravity to swim? What do you think? Fish need gravity to swim? Yeah. How many say yes, they need gravity to swim? How many say no, they don't need gravity to swim? Most of us, right? Makes sense. It turns out that they actually, they actually need gravity to swim. You know what they do in gravity? In space without gravity? They go in circles. So it turns out that fish have a receptor in there for the gravity vector. And they use gravity to determine where it's up and where it's down. In space, there is no up or down. In space, up and down is where your head is. So here on Earth, in one gravity, where is up? Toward the ceiling, right? In space is where my head is. So if my feet are in the ceiling, where is up? Down at the floor. If my feet are on the side of the wall over here, where is up? Over this way. So up has no meaning except where your head is located and your feet are positioned. So fish actually sends gravity to determine where up and down is relative to the water. Without gravity, they can't figure out how to swim. And it's so funny to watch the movies. They just swim in circles. They just go round and round and round. So this was a really interesting experience. I was a payload officer on STS-3 in March 1982. And this was another student experiment. Bees, butterflies, and moths. What do all three of those have in common? They all have wings. They all have the same size wings? No, who's got the smallest wing? The bee. Who's got the biggest wing? The butterfly. Who's got the medium-sized wing? The moth. So the student had the question was, does the size of the wing without gravity make a difference in how the insects fly or not fly in space? A student came up with this idea. So we put them all in this box and launched them into space. And here was the result. So the bees didn't really do that much. They didn't really care for weightlessness, for microgravity. Instead of bumblebees, they became tumblebees. They just tumbled around the box. That's all they did. There was no flying going on at all. The moths just hung on for dear life under the box. The butterfly was really interesting. So how does the butterfly fly? Right? Gigantic wing, little body. So the butterfly takes her wings and pushes down and pushes a lot of air down under her wings, which causes her body to lift, right? And what causes the butterfly to sink back down? Gravity. So that's why we say butterflies flutter, right? They do this. Gravity pulls them down, and then take their big wings, push down. The air goes down under the wings, and then they pop up. They flutter by. Now, in weightlessness, it was a little bit different. So the lady butterfly got in the middle of the box, took her wings, and pushed all that air, and then whipped and slammed into the side of the box. Well, whoa, where's the down part? Where's the flutter part? So she didn't really care for that. That didn't go on very long. She decided she'd just kind of hang on to the box after a while because there was no down part for gravity. So there was only the up part, and she banged her head pretty good against the box. So it was a very interesting experience of bees and butterflies and moths that, again, was a student experiment idea. Of the shuttle, on one of the launches, we would have grasshoppers attached to the tank. We would have all kinds of insects that would get on the tank, and we'd see them with the cameras prior to launch. This one time we had a fruit bat that was attached to the tank. Now here's the shuttle that all these people flew. Tom Akers and Linda and Vic Richards and company, Charlie. And so the solid rock, 4-segment solid rocket boosters are the white ones on the side, the shuttles on the back side, the orbiter, and then in the middle here is the large external tank that's brownish in color. That's the insulation material. It's a big thermos bottle. And so the fruit bat had ended up attaching itself to the side of the tank, and we think it was injured because it didn't fly away. We think it had ended up with an injured wing and just hung onto the tank. And the engine split, and the bat stayed with the tank. And we launched it, it was staying with the tank. It stayed with the tank until we got fast enough where the air pushed the bat off. And then the bat kind of got consumed by the engines. But it was really... It was interesting, but you know, this bat inspired a book, a student book, called Bart the Batronaut, about the and goes through astronaut training, becomes a astronaut, and then goes and discovers water on the surface of the moon. So that fruit bat turned itself into a children's book that's called Bart the Batronaut. So we had the bat that flew. So this was another student experiment, spiders. So have you ever watched a spider make a spider web? It's fascinating, isn't it? How did they do that? So they climb up in a corner and they attach the silk thread at the ceiling or a top of a tree or a branch, and then they let go. And the filament comes out from the abdomen, right, the silk. And what pulls the spider down? Gravity, right? So then they attach down below, and then they climb back up, and they do it again. And if you watch, they make all these vertical strands, and then they go horizontally across as well until they get this cross network of thread. And once they have this hatch network, the vertical and horizontal lines, they can crawl on that to make the spiral. That's how they make a spider web. So a student had the idea, can a spider make a spider web in space without gravity? What do you think? Can a spider make a spider web without gravity? So we just walked through how they make it, right? You've watched them make spider webs. Can a spider make a spider web without gravity? Yeah. How many say yes? How many say, no, ain't gonna happen, gotta have gravity? That's what I was thinking too. So on Skylab, we flew this student experiment with a female spider named Arabella. That was her name, Arabella. She flew on America's first space station, Skylab. She actually made 2 spider webs. This is the first one, and it's pretty rad. It got some holes, but basically it had the spiral nature along with the horizontal and vertical stripes. You know how she made it without gravity? I don't think if it was a boy spider, it would have figured it out. But because it was a girl spider, she figured it out. So she attached to the side of the box and then let go. Bumped in the other side of the box, held on, attached her thread, let go. And went all the way around the box, right? Up and down sideways until she had all those cross members constructed. And then she crawled on those cross members to make the spiral. So the first one was not a real pretty web. The second one she did was pretty dadgum good. Girl spider figured it out how to make it without gravity. So hats off to Arabella, the female spider. That's pretty good spider web, isn't it? Without gravity, she figured the dadgum thing out. Pretty amazing. So my last story involves myself and woodpeckers. So I was the lead flight director on STS-70. We were going to launch a $1 billion communication satellite for military and NASA on this mission, but we ended up with a problem. So here's again the large external tank that holds the liquid hydrogen and oxygen. There's the propellant that feeds the 3 main engines of the shuttle. So it was, unfortunately, we were about to launch in the springtime of the year, and it was mating season for the woodpeckers. So the lady woodpecker tells the daddy woodpecker, you need to go find a good tree and make a home. You know, I'm ready to have some little woodpeckers. So this one daddy woodpecker said, I'm going to go find the best tree in Florida that I can find. And decided upon this big orange tree that's sitting at Kennedy Space Center on Launch Complex 39, the external tank. And this daddy woodpecker just went nuts. So held onto this tree and started with their beak going through the foam insulation, which is a couple of inches thick. And once he got through a couple inches, he hit the hard aluminum tank, right? Oh, I've hit a wood knife. I picked the wrong part of the tree. So we went and went to another part of the tank, and another part of the tank, and another part of the tank. Went all over the external tank, making these holes. And the woman woodpecker, Wyatt, was going, "You need to get going with this thing." So he was really one frustrated male woodpecker. Made holes all over the tank. It was so bad, we had put the plastic big owls out. No help. We put the balloons with faces on it. No help. Air horns. No help. They took up rifles with blanks in it to fire that could scare away the woodpecker. No help. This guy was really determined to make his home in this tank, hell or high water. So we had made holes all over it. We tried everything to get this woodpecker to stop. No joy. So we had to roll the entire, we could not fix this at the launch pad. We had to roll the entire stack, orbiter, tank, solids, on the mobile launch platform back to the vertical assembly building where we could put scaffolding around the external tank to patch it. We patched it, and we ended up delaying the launch for about a month because of the woodpecker. Patched it, it was several $1 million. This was not popular in Washington at all. But the story gets better. So, of course, this is Woody Woodpecker, right? He is from Universal Studios. So, Universal Studios had heard about all this press that was going on with this woodpecker. They invited the crew over to Universal Studios for a tour, and while they were there, they gave a doll, a Woody Woodpecker doll, to the crew for STS-70, and they took it back to Kennedy for a meeting. I was down there for some pre-launch briefings and walked down to the spacecraft with the crew, and they said, "Wow, we can't take Woody on the space mission. Would you take Woody back to Mission Control and take care of Woody there? Because we can't take him into space." I said, "No problem, I can do that." So Woody and I got on the airplane, flew back to the Johnson Space Center, and they modified their patch. So now this is STS-70, and somebody had one of these patches here today, and you see the shape of the patch. So all the crew was from Ohio. You see the big O? Yeah? Pretty cute, huh? So, and then they added Woody onto that. It didn't fly. NASA wouldn't allow them to put, NASA was still pretty upset with Woody about the thing. But we did the launch finally and deployed this big communication satellite, and I think everything was really going well. Here's Woody. So I took him back to the control center. I got him a headset, I got him a NASA badge, I got him a shirt. He was kind of like Flat Stanley. Right? Everybody loved Woody, and he went through all the 17 consoles of Mission Control, visiting all the controllers. Everybody loved him. He even sat with me at the flight director console. So back then, NASA TV broadcast worldwide, really, the Mission Control and the flight director console, the Capcom console during the mission. And so Woody's sitting back here behind my console. And then I get this phone call. It's on the red phone behind me, right over here behind this building. And it's for high official calls. So I went, "Oh, somebody's calling me to congratulate me for the mission." So I pick up the phone, and it's the president of NASA, the administrator of NASA. And he says, "Do you know who this is?" I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "How are you, Mr. Administrator, Mr. Golden?" He says, "Not too good." And see, I thought he was calling to congratulate me on this great mission. We deployed this big number satellite. It worked really good. I thought he was calling to congratulate me. And he says, "Kelso," he says, "why is that woodpecker in the control center?" I said, "Oh, it's a great story. Let me tell you the story." And he goes, "Don't you know that I'm really pissed off at the woodpecker? It costs us a month in delay, right? A waterfall through other missions, millions of dollars to patch the holes on the tank. I'm really upset." And not only did I have Woody, but we went to the hunting store and we bought the little plastic woodpeckers and had them all over. The administrator was really pissed at me. And he said, Kelso, if that woodpecker is not out of the control center, he says, I'm getting you out of the control center. Oh, yes, sir, I got that. So Woody went in the back room, so he couldn't be seen by the administrator anymore. And now I believe he's living in Space Museum in Oklahoma, Tom Stafford's museum. So this is what, so he's pretty good size. You know, he's not a little woodpecker, he's a big guy. So I'm gonna have to go visit Woody. But Woody had the woodpecker had an interesting story in human spaceflight as a part of the shuttle program. So thanks for letting me come and share with you a little bit about insects.
These people go about their daily lives just like the rest of us, but they're always there to support those things that benefit our community. And I personally think they deserve a great hand. They ask nothing in return. All they like to see, honestly, I think I can speak for them, they just like to see their donations benefit the community. And I personally think this has benefited the community. Yes? Another very generous individual, Joyce Buckeye. Simcoe Plastics Company. Have we got a representative from Simcoe here? Kurt, are you still here? Hi, buddy. Does that retain my job for a while? Okay. Handicraft Company, Paul and Lila Williams, and I've got to say something about Paul and Lila. Man, they are movers and shakers. Yes? Those of you who know them, tremendous civic leaders. First State Community Bank, Jim and Carol Eaton, pillars of the community. Chris Engler and Farmington Convention and Tourism Bureau. They provided the electronic signs in Farmington and out on Highway 67. U.S. Tool Group, Samaritan Lodge, who prepared the meal today. How was it? I didn't get any of it. Expressions by Dennis. How many of you noticed the beautiful floral arrangement in our gift shop? I'm afraid to get too close to it. I'm afraid it'll eat me. Farmington Sign. Did you read the article in 572? Great article. And Mindy Vocal. All contributors to the effort. We would also like to extend our appreciation to these fine organizations for their assistance in promoting this event. Max Old Team. Would you guys stand up for a moment, please? Max Old Team. It is upon these shoulders that we built our space program. They were working at a time when they didn't know how it was going to be done. Right, guys? Yeah. They figured it out. We have a sign in our museum that said they solve 100 unsolvable problems every day. With a slide rule, no less. 3 moving parts, no battery. They took us to the moon. What's wrong with us now? St. Louis Space Frontier Society. St. Louis Science Center. We have folks here from St. Louis Science Center. The Missouri Aviation Historical Society. Challenger Center. Aero Experience. You've seen these guys running around documenting the program all the way. That's Aero Experience. Bonne Terre Chamber of Commerce. Bonne Terre Services. Now don't get up on the clap. Now with everything. Bonne Terre Municipal Airport. Bonne Terre Historical Society. Bonne Terre Betterment Committee. The Jackson, Missouri Chamber of Commerce. And the Cape Girardeau Chamber of Commerce. And I failed. I always managed to stub my toe somewhere along the way, and we did on this one. The city of Bonne Terre deserves a huge Sean Page for making this event what it is. Thank you all, and thank you for believing in the Space Museum. We hope that it will continue to be what we choose for it to be, an asset to the community. And the state, and the region, we also have another tribute today, and it's somewhat sad. We lost one of our own. What a wonderful gentleman he was. He will be remembered by many. Bob Shep left us not too long ago, and he was a member of the iconic Mercury 6. Those of you who still remain of the Mercury 6, would you stand, please? These guys go around doing everything they can to promote spaceflight. They don't want to see their dream die, and neither do I. This is, I hope we got the right image up. Yes. This is Bob Shep doing what he loves best. Do you know who Bob is in the photo? Can you tell? It's this guy right here. Okay? He loved to talk. You couldn't shut him up. But the incredible thing was everything he said meant something. He was an incredible man, and what he loved most was mentoring young people. This was, and I want to brag on these guys too, this was the Festus Rocketry Club from Festus, Missouri. Yeah, I went back to life. You know what they did? They went to Paris, France, and won the world championship. Missouri, and I don't think Bob would be diminished any. He's watching over us right now. Shut up, Bob. He's watching over us right now. He would not be diminished any by the round of applause for these young people. Missouri has a huge aerospace legacy. Now they're part of it. Right? So Godspeed, Bob Shep. May your RCS fuel tanks always be full so you can maneuver to see all the wonders you now behold. Bob Shep, a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Janet Ivey. As a national local television celebrity. She has her own program, Janet's Planet. She is also a member of the Board of Governors for the National Space Society. We're very pleased to have her today. She has given us opportunities to spread our wings at the Space Museum, has invited us 2 years in a row to appear at the ExxonMobil Children's Festival in Houston, where we entertained over 20,000 kids over 4 days. Woo! Pretty good. I'm going to put her on the spot. Do I get to come back next year?
You better.
Okay, all right. All right, so without further ado, we will seat our VIP guests. Grissom family, stand up. Scott Grissom, stand up. Did I tell you to sit down? No, I did not. Scott Grissom, of course, the son of the iconic Gus Grissom, not Lowell's son, as it was on his badge today, right? Gus's son, and Lowell and his beautiful wife, Bobette, the brother of Gus Grissom. So with no further ado, Janet, it's yours.
If you will begin to make your way, I believe, Dr. Godwin, we're going to situate you here, right here. We've got a little bit of an order, but come on down and find a chair, and then I would like to take the time to introduce these amazing good folks. I have to tell a story on Earl. How we connected was at the International Space Development Conference. There you go. Yes, Miss Linda there, then if I could have Thomas Akers, then Dick Richards, Charlie Walker, Jerry Ross, Rob Kelso, and then George Leopold at the end. Yeah, I think you guys are good. So you're at the end there? Yeah, we'll play a little bit of musical chairs here. But the reason Earl Mullins ever caught my eye, and again guys, be careful in those chairs. Yes, I know, it's like, gently. We can fly them to the moon, but we may not can protect them from chairs. So, but it was in St. Louis, and Earl likes to do things that go boom and with nitrogen, so the hotel didn't let him stay inside. So they put him outside, and there's traffic all around, but he is engaging a group of international students. And he did such a great job, I thought I must know him. So that is why I am here today and have hired him and will hire him again. So without further ado, I would like to introduce these amazing folks. We'll start with Dr. Linda Godwin. She was actually born in Cape Girardeau, but her hometown is Jackson, Missouri. She is somebody from Jackson, Missouri. She's a member of the American Physical Society, the 99s. We're going to ask you a question about that. We've got other members, great. And the Association of Space Explorers. She also served as assistant to the Director for Exploration Flight Crew Ops Directorate at JSC, and now she's a professor at the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of Missouri. Make her feel welcome. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri. He was the valedictorian of his 29-member 1969 senior class from Eminence, Missouri. But you got to hear this part. I love finding this out about him. He worked summers as a park ranger in the 80,000-acre federal wilderness that borders Eminence. He graduated from the University of Missouri and the Missouri, I guess it's now the Missouri University of Science and Technology with a BS and an MS degrees in applied mathematics. But at the age of 24, he returned to Eminence to become its high school principal. But in 1979, when the United States Air Force recruiter left brochures on his desk for his students, it was Mr. Akers, who decided to sign up. He was selected for the astronaut program in 1987 and officially became Captain Dick Richards, although he was born in West Florida, he attended high school in St. Louis. He's a retired American naval officer, an aviator, test pilot, chemical engineer, and a former NASA astronaut. He flew also 4 space shuttle missions in the 1980s and 90s. He's an avid Cardinals fan. He won their here's what's interesting. This is a guy that you want flying your plane. He made the first shipboard catapults and arrested landings during the initial sea trials of the FA-18A on board USS America in 1979. He was reassigned to Fighter Squadron 33 in May 1980 and was en route to that assignment when he was notified of his selection as an astronaut candidate. So imagine this, you're set out for one mission and, I gotta go be an astronaut. So mission director, manager for the second Hubble Space Telescope Surfacing Space Shuttle mission, and the mission manager for the second Tethered Satellite Systems Space Shuttle mission. Make him feel welcome. Is Charlie Walker. He's an Indiana native, but I beg you, Missouri folks not to hold that against him. He spent a great deal of time in Missouri as an employee of McDonnell Douglas, and he's an American engineer who flew on 3 space shuttle missions in 1984 and 5 as a payload specialist. Now, they had designed, apparently, this experiment, and I asked him last night when I was briefly chatting with him, did he purposefully design it so that he had to also become an astronaut? We will let you guys decide about that. And, it was actually, he's going to tell a great story of how, in an initial interview, that a dream of his became reality. He proposed that McDonnell Douglas actually were the ones that proposed that Walker fly as a payload specialist to operate the CFES himself. And his training, though, included a flight on a Northrop T-38 Talon jet trainer aircraft and about 40 flights on the Vomit Comet, proving that a civilian can learn very quickly how to go into space. Please make him feel welcome. Indiana. He's a retired United States Air Force officer and a former NASA astronaut. He is a veteran of 7 space shuttle missions. He's considered a NASA frequent flyer. I wonder how many miles is that, right? Do you get to get reimbursed for those? So he shares that record with Franklin Chang Diaz. His papers, photographs, and many personal items are in the Baron Hilton Flight and Space Exploration Archives at Purdue University. He was inducted into the Astronaut Hall of Fame during ceremonies in May 2014. He's the author of Spacewalker. I hope many of you purchased that book. My Journey in Space and Faith as NASA's record-setting frequent flyer with John Norbeg. In March 2014, it was announced that Spacewalker will be available in a French translation, and he told me last night it will soon be available in Portuguese. Alert your friends in Brazil. But I love what fellow astronaut Chris Hadfield, the Canadian commander of the Space Shuttle, said about Jerry. He said in An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth that Jerry Ross is the embodiment of the trustworthy, loyal, courteous, and brave astronaut archetype. Make him feel welcome. You got to hear from Rob Kelso. We bonded last night over his intense love and outreach of all student kinds of programs. Now, my research said he's a 37-year veteran employee of Johnson Space Flight Center. 35, 37, give or take, but we're glad he's here. He became a flight director for the shuttle program. He now serves as an executive director at the Pacific International Space Center for Exploration Systems, or PICES, which is its acronym. And during his time in flight, he was in charge and instrumental in launching the Department of Defense spacecraft aboard the Space Shuttle, beginning with overseeing the first DoD launch from Mission Control. And he also served as NASA's mission director responsible for the launch and delivery of the Chandra X-ray telescope. I have no idea that sound. I kept wanting to keep backing up until it would go away. But again, he is the Chandra X-ray telescope is the last of the great NASA observatories sent into space by NASA. Please make Rob feel welcome. Is George Leopold. He is a veteran technology journalist and science writer who has covered the nexus between technology and policy for over 30 years. He's written extensively about U.S. manned spaceflight, humankind spaceflight, including the Apollo and Space Shuttle programs. His work has appeared in New York Times, New Scientist, and a variety of other science and technology publications. He is the author of Calculated Risk, the Supersonic Life and Times of Gus Grissom. Please make him feel welcome. Here's what I thought we would do. I would love to start with Dr. Godwin. Your story is curious. Tell them exactly how your process of becoming an astronaut happened. That might be very, very inspiring for a lot of our attendees this afternoon.
How long do I have?
I think we're all in agreement. We don't like how long this takes. Yeah.
Whenever people leave, we're done.
Oh, I got yeah. I get asked a lot, was I interested when I was a kid being an astronaut? And so, when I was a kid and we're starting human spaceflight, there weren't any women in those roles. As a matter of fact, we were seeing them in mission control. So I'm glad times have changed. But I got interested in math and science. I was actually maybe one of the few astronauts who read all the science fiction growing up and enjoyed that. I really liked math and science. I was born in Cape Girardeau, by the way, that's just because the hospital was there. So really, Jackson's my hometown. And as some of my high school classmates are here today, we had some really good math and science teachers. So educators get a big shout out for really, controlling how students are. And I was my high school science teacher, Mr. Seawall, which probably some of these people had. In our high school physics class, it was 50-50 girls and boys, and that was the highest ratio I ever had after that. It was just all that. So, I don't know. I just started out liking math and science. I had a twin sister. We had common interests. We took all the same math and science, so we always had that buddy competitiveness, but still somebody to talk to. And ended up going to SEMO with math, physics and math degree, and a university for PhD in physics. Really followed NASA all the way through, was interested in it, and I was working on my PhD when NASA announced they were hiring again, which I hadn't for a while, for the shuttle program, and for the very first time they were actively recruiting women to apply, and had this field of science astronaut, and what I was doing fit the basic criteria. So the education opened the door for me, a lot of support along the way, and I did apply multiple times to get in. But finally didn't get to move down there for another job and did an astronaut program. So it's not always I didn't have it all planned out.
Thank you very much. I would love to ask you, Mr. Akers, what was your impetus when you saw that laying on your desk to join the Air Force, and did you begin to have aspirations of space or needed a career change?
Well, if you've ever been a high school teacher or a high school principal,
Get you as far away from Earth as possible.
I've always said I've always just been looking for an easier job. Now, my wife was an Air Force grad, and after 4 years of being a high school principal there in my hometown, I was really blessed. I had a great student body and a great faculty. I just decided I want to use my math degree, which I had done, and so I joined the Air Force. And I'm glad I did. The good Lord blessed me throughout my life and career.
All right. And we'll go next to your friend there. So you told me a story last night, Dick, if you recall, because I kind of asked all of them, was there an inciting moment? Was there a person? And Dick has a very interesting story. He doesn't remember her name, but somebody very profound.
I'm remiss that I don't remember this wonderful woman's name, but my story was I came out of Riverview Gardens High School in St. Louis, and there's a lot of people that would tell you that, well, we knew we wanted to be astronauts even then, and that's what we pointed our lives toward, but I didn't have a clue what I wanted to be when I left Riverview Gardens High School. Fortunate enough to enroll at the University of Missouri at Columbia, and I had some great math and science teachers in high school, and they sort of made it cool to be someone interested in math and science, and I liked it, and so I decided to pursue a career in engineering. Wasn't quite sure that was what I wanted to do, but I had this wonderful senior teacher who happened to be a woman, very graceful, very gifted as far as being a teacher, and she taught calculus, which at the time, going into college, was the big, you were scared of calculus, and you were first year, and I was scared of it, and I was scared of her. But she made it magical and wonderful, and I really enjoyed it, and she sort of sealed the deal for me that I was going to be an engineer, and that's what I wanted to do. Along the way, though, to get into the University of Missouri, I also had an ROTC scholarship, and so I had a commitment to the military at the end of my tour, in my time at the University of Missouri, and didn't know really what I wanted to do there, even in the Navy. My dad was a Navy enlisted man, and so off I went in the Navy, and I said, well, I think I'll just go see if I can fly airplanes. I'd never flown an airplane before in my life, and the Navy said, sure, we'll train you how to do that, and off I went to Pensacola, and lo and behold, I was good at it, and that just changed my career. Unfortunately, I never was able, after that, to make use much of what that wonderful calculus instructor taught me, but at least it put me in a position that I could talk with these wonderful engineers at Don Levis at the time, later on when we started testing the F-18, and so she paid off then, and she paid off later as well, too.
And would you kindly mention a little bit about your pride in the U.S. partnerships and where the space shuttle program ended?
Oh, yes. When I joined NASA, it was in 1980, and this was just prior to STS-1, or the first flight of the space shuttle. And at the time, it was an American-only program. There weren't any Europeans, weren't any Asians, certainly not any Russians. Wandering around the Johnson Space Center, it was all American. And about halfway through that, things changed. All of a sudden, the space station that we're building almost got killed in Congress, and we changed focus and decided to go into a partnership with our enemies and our competitors, the Soviet Union at the time, later Russia, and we started coming together. Now NASA is, there's an International Space Station going overhead. It'll go overhead here, I checked, tomorrow at 5:45 in the morning. It'll be good weather, so those of you who want to go out and see a great show, look off to the southwest and about 45 degrees up, you'll see it fly over. But there's 6 men and women from all different countries with operating 365 days a year, all around the world, with all the different mission control centers in 7 different countries. So we've gone from an American-only program to one for a space station for planet Earth. And I really enjoyed that, and I didn't get to do, my contribution to it was small, but I'm really glad that I was there to be able to participate, to transition it to the program it is today.
To Charlie last night, we talked about a couple of stories he would love to share today. I was going to start with your most memorable story that you think from your experience on the space shuttle.
Time did you say we had her? It's hard to, and I'm going to dare to presume, which is not something you really want to do with a bunch of astronauts about anything. But I would dare say that we all none of us can focus on one particular thing in any of our flights, because there are just so many aspects to a flight. And we just have to force ourselves to pick and choose the answer to that question, our most favorite thing.
I gotta say that I'm gonna choose that first rocket ride, probably the most, I'll choose to say it's the most memorable thing. It certainly is very memorable for the first time in a person's life, to sit on top of that rocket fully fueled, and we get training exercises to take us out to sit on a stacked rocket ship, in our case the space shuttles, before the launch morning, scheduled launch morning happens, when there's an additional couple of million pounds of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen in the external tank that morning. So out there with 4 million pounds of high explosives underneath of you, and it's wired and fused and primed to ignite in a certain sequence, and you are both trained and at that point confident that that sequence will happen correctly. But then you also you look around you while you're listening to the rocket ship on the launch pad as you approach it, as you go up the gantry tower to the walkway across the walk arm from the structure to the white room at the entry hatch into the space shuttle orbiter. You listen to the space shuttle. The tank has some ice on the exterior of it that's formed from the humidity in the air, the super cold temperatures inside of it, and the ice occasionally cracks loose and falls to the pad, maybe 190 feet below. The plumbing that is keeping the tank fueled is crackling with expansion and contraction of extreme temperatures. The wind is blowing through and around the structure as well as around the wings of the space shuttle orbiter. And all of that you notice this almost living thing that is now ready to leap off the launch pad. At the same time that you intellectually recall that besides the 3 technicians and maybe a couple of security people that are on the launch pad, and your crew of maybe, it depends on the mission, 5 to 7 people. Those of you who I've just mentioned that you see or hear around you on the launch pad, the only other human beings, that you are the only human beings within 3.5 miles of this being, this thing filled with 4 million pounds of high explosive. Now, if I haven't set a mood for you, and of course here you are, you're primed to go on a mission. You have been trained, you have kept telling yourself over and again, day in, day and night, telling the family that you're going to do this because it's important, but here's the reason why, and you are convinced. And yet you swallow hard when you go through all these experiences of seeing and feeling the preparation, the suiting then in the white room, the sitting back in the seats. And the seats, of course, you're on your back when you're in the orbiter. Your face is upwards toward the sky, the direction you're going to go. Your legs are up in the air in that seat. It's on its back. And so here you are, the hatch closes, and now you're a little isolated from the rest of the world, sitting on top of this beast filled with explosives. So there's a little bit of a tense moment, but when the rocket's light, suddenly you're immersed in it, and there's no going back. And I think a smile came across my face when the rocket motor finally lit. Like, here we go, and here I go. And from that point, there was total faith in the system and the people, the good people that put so much blood, sweat, and tears into making a space mission happen. So I was in the middle deck of the space shuttle orbiter, and I only had one porthole view of the outside world as we left the surface. The feeling, of course, the vibration begins when the liquid fuel rocket engines light up, and there's a little bit of vibration, there is some motion because you're at the top of a vehicle that is attached to the launch pad and Earth at 2 points, the base ends of the solid rocket motors. And you're hung out on the side of the external tank. So there is a moment, speaking of physics, there's a moment arm here in which you're introducing a force off the center of alignment of that stack of structure, and so literally the nose of the shuttle, as the liquid motors start up 2, 3, 4 or 5 seconds before liftoff, the nose twangs over, we call it. And you literally feel yourself moving laterally at the same time the vibration is beginning. And there's an internal clock that begins up here, because you know when you get back to zero, something big is going to happen. And when it does, immediately 1/2 G on top of your own weight pushes you back into the seat. The vibration really gets a little, I'd say, noticeable. It's not totally strong. I once said to an audience, I said, and then there was, my teeth was chattering at the rocket and rolling with that liftoff of this Apollo astronaut. I said, son, you don't really know what it is. But it was impressive enough for me. And then looking out that side window and literally seeing the blue horizon diminish, the air that is around us in the blue sky that fills the view out the window that you can see as much as you can see. Within 60 seconds, that all-encompassing blue sky compresses itself into a thin layer. And it visibly happens at the speed that you're sensing change is remarkable. You see the clouds above you, you penetrate them, they slide below you. It's a remarkable experience as the acceleration builds up, the solid rockets explode. It seems like to you there's very large explosive bolts, and they have their own small rockets that propel them away from you and the external tank on your way to space. Once those separate, the ride gets very smooth. It's almost like riding an electric car, as Dick Richards put it this morning with a question, like riding an electric car on a straight and very smooth asphalt road. Traveling a few tens of thousands of miles an hour, but it's a very smooth ride from that point on, but you can build up to 3 G's of acceleration on you in the last 2.5 minutes of ascent. And so 8 minutes after that fiery and noticeable moment of liftoff, the main engine's cut off, and within a second or two, the acceleration goes from 3 G's pushing you back in your seat to 0 G's. And that's when the few unlucky ones among us see our breakfast for a second time. And then we feel a lot better from that point on for the rest of the mission. So it's a very remarkable experience, and there's a lot of other emotions and physical sensations that go along with that is difficult to encompass in a few words.
You did a great job. So I want astronaut Jerry Ross to talk about his most interesting training moment of astronaut training.
Well, I'm not sure it's the most interesting training.
Let's say challenging.
More challenging than interesting. If you want to be a spacewalking astronaut, you have to qualify at swimming and then qualify at scuba swimming. I swim just like a rock. Still to this day, I swim just like a rock, yet I've done 9 spacewalks. When I found out that this was a requirement, I pulled the 2 instructors that were going to do our scuba training aside and explained to them I swam just like a rock. And they said, okay, we'll get back to you. And they went ahead and took Dick and the rest of my class, trained them, certified them, no problem. And then they came back to me. And so they put me in the water and they tried to get me to demonstrate floating capability. I float just like a rock. Literally, by totally overexpanding my lungs, I could get about this much out of the water. And of course, what happens when you exhale to get your next breath? Another rock. So I convinced them after a while that I wasn't afraid of swimming. Oh, by the way, the other thing was when they tried to get me to do some strokes, I went backwards instead of forwards. So anyhow, they put me in the water, and once I convinced them that I wasn't afraid of water, I just was a good rock. Then they gave me some snorkel gear and a I worked on the snorkel gear. As long as I had some fins and I could breathe and all that and had a mask, no problem. So then they said, okay, let's take you to the next step, and they put me into scuba gear. I started doing all that, demonstrated that I was okay, and in the shallow swimming pool, I did all the things I was going to have to do for my final exam. And the final exam was to get into a 25-foot swimming pool, actually our spacewalking training facility, called the WEF, Weightless Environment Training Facility. And then I was supposed to put on my scuba gear, dive to the bottom, take all my gear off, come back to the surface, go back down, find my gear, put everything on, clear my mask, put on my fins, put the mouthpiece in my mouth and start breathing, which I was glad to do, and then come back to the surface, end of story. I did that. I barely survived. I barely did it. And then we had to have a proficiency dive that we had to do every 6 months. Is that right? So I never let that certification lapse because I never wanted to have to go through that.
And so Rob and I, when I spoke, we had a couple of things that he could speak about. One is that Murphy's Law tends to always strike in space, and he's got some stories to share about that.
Let's see, I think what Earl wanted me to do is tell the potty story. 2 years ago, the McDonald, Mr. Max guy, 6 guys, and we were exchanging space stories. I told him the toilet story, the potty story. And he said, "You got to tell that story." I said, "Oh, okay." So it was my first shift as a flight director. In mission control, there's 3 teams. Each team has a flight director. One team looks at the crew morning, one in the afternoon, evening, and then one team oversees the spacecraft and the crew while the crew sleeps. And traditionally, the first flight of the flight director is on the sleep shift. You don't have to talk with the crew. You just beat the hell out of any problems that have been surfacing. You do a lot day analysis. You plan the next day, and you just watch over the spacecraft. It's real easy. Or so I thought. And so I was assigned to the plane shift on my first flight. And it was the Department of Defense flight. It was a secret flight, which turned out to be God's blessing in retrospect. And so I came on to the sleep shift. The crew was already put to bed. They had had a really tough day on this particular flight. So the flight director before me had already told the astronauts, I'm going to give you your time and go to sleep. And I was told not to talk to the crew, just sit there and plan and have an easy shift. And I said, I can do that. So at that time, we have a tracking data relay satellite goes around the world. We would see the shuttle had telemetry probably about 85 minutes out of the 90-minute orbit, all except for one spot over the Indian Ocean, where one satellite can't quite see the other. And we were about 10 minutes out from this loss of signal coming into the Indian Ocean, and that's when I picked up my part of the shift. And the flight director I was relieving walked out the door, and I thought, this is going to be so easy, and it's my first shift. And up on front of the screens at the control center was a big 10-foot by 10-foot projection of all the alarms on board the spacecraft. And about the time this gentleman walks out of the room and I'm in charge, I'm looking at the screen and I see 2 fault messages, alarms, go off on that page. And it said O2 high flow and N2 high flow, which meant that the regulators, the pressure system on the spacecraft, had opened full up and air was pouring into the spacecraft. And claxons were going off, ooga, ooga, and there were alarms going off on the spacecraft. And immediately I'm thinking, this can't be real. It must be a practice mission. This can't be happening to me. And I hear the environmental control officer that's down on my right, oh shit. And he calls me and says, Mike, he says, I don't know what just happened, but we may have been hit by a rock or we may have a major hole in the spacecraft, but we're losing air somewhere really fast. And so the tanks are having a hard time keeping up. And the flight dynamics officer comes up responsible for trajectory, and says, flight, if that link doesn't stop, we're going to have to come into Africa in the next few orbits. Because we were off the range, we couldn't get back to the United States. Our range now would be a contingency landing site into Africa. And I'm going, I've only been on ship 5 minutes. Well, it turned out the potty had broken. So quick description of the potty, and these guys can tell you more. But it basically it's like our potty. There's a bowl and a lid, and on this space potty, there's a plate that goes over the top of the potty. And attached to the plate is a small pipe with a valve. And when the potty's not being used, the plate is closed and the valve is open on this bleed line that goes over the spacecraft. And the potty is evacuated to space. It's a vacuum. And it helps keep down the smell and keeps things freeze-dried. You can picture that. So now the way you operate the potty is you sit on it, and there are these foam fingers that goes over your thigh so you don't float off the potty. Right? And then you pull up this handle next to you, and that closes the overboard vent valve. You push the handle forward, and it opens this plate underneath your butt so that you can do your business. So this unnamed astronaut that happened to be the commander was sitting on the potty, and he broke the linkage to the potty. So he pulls up this handle and jams the handle forward, and the bleed valve did not close, but the plate opens. So get this picture, the commander is sitting on the potty, the gate is open, all the spacecraft air is going under his butt, into the bowl, and over the bleed line to space. In the potty, as these guys tell you, are 2 vents, high pressure vents, and all his air. He closes the gate valve, the plate, you know, and he opens the door and looks at the middeck, and everybody's getting ready to go to sleep, and their eyes are huge. And he said, did anybody touch anything? Because that's a real number. And they said, no, we didn't touch a thing. He says, I'm trying to use the pot here, you know. So he went back and he does it again. And we had gone into this loss of signal period, and I had the communication officer dump the flight recorder, and as soon as we went lost signal, I ran back to the back room and looked at the strip chart recorder, and the next few hours we called every potty expert in the country that we knew. In a few hours I became a real expert on the potty. And we figured out how to work around the potty by using that. Yeah, Jerry was there too. Yeah, Jerry got pulled in. And we figured out we could use the vice grip to manually open and close this bleed valve, but technically the potty was still broken. And so the next morning I go into the management briefing room and I said, I got good news and bad news. And they said, well, what's the good news? I said, well, we think the commander was sitting on the potty and the gate valve opened and the bleed valve didn't close and his butt was exposed to vacuum. We lost a lot of air up in his butt. They said, that's the good news? I said, yes, sir. They said, what's the bad news? I said, well, we have a flight rule that the astronaut office put in before we started the flight shuttle. And they said, what's that? They said, if the potty breaks, we would land the next day. And they said, well, why is that? I said, because of the Apollo bag. And they said, what's the Apollo bag? And so I explained that in Apollo, it was a plastic bag with a butterfly hinge on top, and it would sit against your butt. And then there was a little plastic finger that because you have Klingons. Klingons is not a Star Trek term. It's without gravity, things don't fall. So
Earl learned you to talk about this, right?
yeah. So you use a little plastic finger to knock off the Klingons. And so it was so bad at Apollo that Bruce put a rule in. If they have to use the Apollo badge, they would much rather land the next day. And they said, that is bad news. So they said, we're not going to do that. Probably a flight will change immediately and we're going to keep flying, which we did. But technically the potty was still broken, but we mechanically worked around it. The only thing that saved my career was it was a secret mission. It was all classified. So I didn't have to go to a press conference. explained how a commander was sitting on the body with his butt to space, and that, you know, we almost had to come in Africa in the first 5 minutes of my first flight as a flight crew. That's one way to start my career.
National security services to keep some of our space missions secret.
Well, I'm hoping that George there on the end could maybe give us a real vision of who Gus Grissom was. We know that he stated that great quote about that even if we die, the space program is worth the risk. As you studied him, was that kind of a general belief that what the space program was indeed worth the risk?
Definitely. Well, first of all, let me say what an honor it is to be on this panel with this group. Earl didn't tell me I was going to follow a honey story. Did the men leave the seat up in the party? Thanks for the question. Yeah, the risk was obviously the thesis of my book, and certainly my subject version by Gus Grissom embraced risk and tried to reduce it wherever he could. But as these guys will tell you, you have to accept a certain amount. It's interesting that you mentioned that quote. I tried to track it down, and I could not track down its provenance. But I think Gus also said, and I don't think this is apocryphal, I think he told his wife Betty Grissom, if I die, throw a party. And that's what Earl's doing today. And I know the Grissom family greatly appreciates it. But I just felt that Gus had been overlooked. I think many of you sort of sensed the same thing. And I wanted to give his life and his career on the record, try to dispel some of the myths surrounding him, and just make it clear that, you know, we don't get to the moon without the contributions of these early guys who worked with these great astronauts who invented technologies and put their eyes on the line, and they got us into space, and they got us into orbit, and eventually to the moon, and eventually space travel became not routine, but we got better and better, I think, thanks to these guys, also according to everyone. So that was my intent.
Is there a story that you like best for maybe people who haven't read your book? A favorite story of your book, or something that maybe you got left out?
Well, Gus hated press conferences and said that the flight was much easier than the press conference. But one of the pre-Apollo press conferences, they got into this discussion about it. It was the protocol to decide who goes out the door first, which two of you three would actually get to the surface, and a lengthy technical explanation ensued, and I think there's film of this, and Gus sort of listened to it for a few seconds, and he cut it and said, well, if it's this crew, it'll be me and one other guy. He was going. He may not have been the first, it sort of depended on the flight rotations and so forth, but he certainly would have made it to the moon had we not had the fire. But of course, the fire is the great cruel irony of the space race in the early days, the great paradox. If the fire doesn't happen, it's possible we don't get to the moon by the end of the decade. So Gus embraced these risks, he worked his tail off, everything he got he earned, and I wanted everybody to remember that. The reception of the book's been great. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that Gus Grissom is beloved in this country, and I wanted to keep his memory alive, as does his family.
And if you guys would kindly join me, it seems fitting after that. Again, just a quick moment of silence for Gus, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. Just a brief moment, it's like when I've been doing a presentation on celebrating and remembering Apollo, and I start with Mercury and go through Gemini and go through the things, and it's important, I think, for you guys to really know, and I'm nerdy enough to want to memorize all those astronauts and stuff, so that's why I always like to mention Michael Collins, because sometimes he gets left out as the command module pilot of the moon landing. So that's my challenge to any student in here, start learning all of those astronauts. And then if you can do all the space shuttle missions, I will personally buy you a prize. I want to come back to Jerry for a minute. A couple of things he mentioned, and I think you can probably wrap several of these things together. You talked about seeing auroras in space, doing a spacewalk, and I think everybody would be interested to know how your faith and your space kind of coincide.
Well, on my sixth space shuttle flight, we were flying over Canada at night. And there were three of us up on the flight deck looking out into the payload bay. And we were all noticing something that didn't look quite right. It kind of looked like we were flying through fog or something. And then all of a sudden, about the same time, all three of us figured out that we were seeing an aurora outside. We were flying through an aurora. Very, very faint, very hard to see, but we could tell there was something going on out there. So we hurried up and turned down all the lights on the flight deck so we wouldn't have reflection in the windows. And we called the rest of the crew up so they could enjoy the sight that we were seeing out there. We didn't even attempt to take any pictures because it was just too ephemeral to us to be able to register on any film. But we sat there and probably oohed and ahed at each other for about 5 to 8 minutes or so. And it was a long pass, much longer than I expected it would be. But it was one of the most amazing sights I've ever seen. Of course, after we got done and we were through it, we're all looking at each other, so okay, are we glowing now, you know? All kinds of highly charged particles flying around there in space. But an incredible event. I mean, to have the opportunity to see an aurora from inside the aurora was pretty cool. So, you've probably heard that we go around the world every 90 minutes, right? At the lower orbits that we fly in the shuttle station. And that means in a 24-hour day we get to see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets. And every one of them seems to try to outdo the last one in terms of its beauty, its complexity, the hues and colors that you get to see, and the rapidity with which it's changing. And on several occasions, I was able to count as many as 13 different distinct layers in the atmosphere, just like layers of a cake stacked up on top of each other. And the only written explanation I have is the different constituents of the atmosphere that tend to settle out at different altitudes. And they each do a little bit different refraction of the light coming through. And they give you those different distinct layers or layers of cake, I guess is what I would like to call it. And those change continuously too. As you're going around the world quickly at 5 miles a second, the angle of the light comes in different, and you can continue to see different lighting conditions going all the way around. Pretty incredible. Another amazing visual thing that we saw on orbit. On my second flight, it was a military flight. We didn't have to tell anybody what we did. And we were flying a mission where we were right on the terminator. In other words, one side of our orbit was basically dark, and the other side of it was towards twilight or light. And we had one of our main tires on the space shuttle, which was slowly losing nitrogen. And so after we launched, they had us point the belly of the orbiter at the sunny side of our orbit to try to maintain the heat as high as we could, so it would help to keep the pressure as high as we could in the tire. Mike Mullane and I were up on the flight deck one day, and all of a sudden, we both kind of saw something out of the corner of our eye. We both sensed it was something weird. We kind of glanced at each other, but neither one of us would admit that we'd seen anything. Now, all of you UFO people out there, don't get too excited. So, okay, we were in this attitude, and the thrusters, the little small rocket engines on the space shuttle, have to fire from time to time to keep you in that attitude when you want to stay there. And if you you can imagine these ice particles flying away from the orbiter and the sun coming through and casting a shadow onto those ice particles as they're flying away from you. That's what we were seeing. What an incredible view. You're seeing the shadow of the plane form of the orbiter, and at first it was up close and fairly pretty much the same size as the space shuttle, but as they flew away at very high speeds, the size got much larger and they just all away from us. And we're going, I can't believe we're seeing that. So again, we brought the entire crew so they could all see it, and that was another amazing thing on orbit. Okay, spacewalks. Okay, can you imagine getting into your own little spacesuit, getting all pressurized up, having scrubbed nitrogen down in your body? By the way, we have a couple other spacewalkers down here, Tom and Linda, and I would like to hear what they've got to say about it. But okay, so you get into this spacesuit and you go out on your very first spacewalk. And in my case, I had helped 3 other crews do spacewalks. I helped do a lot of the preparatory work on the ground for them. I spent time in mission control as a capsule communicator, helping them while they're outside. And all 3 of these crews, also the crews that flew the little man maneuver, the rocket backpack. And so it was all pretty good time. But I got a little bit more green with envy. And I'm going to wear some green tomorrow, by the way. Every time I was on the ground talking to them, and they were outside having a lot of fun, I was still on the ground and hadn't flown my first flight. So I got up on board my first flight. I was afraid that maybe something on the space shuttle would break and we'd have to go home before I could do my spacewalks, because we had 2 of them planned. Nothing broke. So when we started checking out the spacesuits before the spacewalks, I was afraid they wouldn't check out and we wouldn't be able to go out. They didn't, they checked out fine. So I got into the spacesuit, and on the day that we were supposed to go out on the first spacewalk, I was all ready to go, and we opened up the hatch, and with the years of anticipation I'd had and waiting for my first opportunity to go outside, I literally wanted to let out this war whoop of happiness of getting out the hatch finally. But I didn't, because I was afraid that the guys inside as well as the people on the ground would think that Ross and Flynn had lost it till they get my rear end back inside. But if you can imagine just floating out the hatch, and you're looking at the universe, or at the Earth, whichever you happen to be pointed at the time, and all that's between you and infinity is this thin plexiglass helmet and several layers of your spacesuit. What an incredible experience to view that and to sense that. And then you go outside and just work like normal. But people always want to know what it's like to work in a spacesuit, and I have to tell you, it's pretty hard work. The suit is very stiff. It's got bearings at specific points in the joints, which helps out a lot, because I've been in other spacesuits that didn't, and it made it much more difficult to work in. But probably the hardest thing is the suit is pressurized at 4.3 pounds per square inch. That makes it pretty stiff. So if you've ever tried to squeeze a balloon when it's pretty well inflated, you get an idea of what it's like. And in fact, the hardest part to design in a space glove to make them as paddle as you can with work are the gloves. You just consider the complexity of the hand and how it has to move and everything else, and then you put all these layers of insulation and everything else on them. You lose a lot of your tactility and dexterity, and every time you open and close your hand, which is what you have to do to crawl around wherever you're going, because a spacewalk is really a space crawl. Every time you open and close your hands, it's like squeezing a fairly stiff rubber ball, like a racquetball. And if you do that for 6 or 7 hours while you're outside, you can imagine how fatigued your hands and forearms and maybe up to your shoulders can get. But you get out there and you're doing that work, and you don't even have the slightest clue as to anything else that's going on, except you're concentrating on what you're doing out there. And frankly, even though you come home, come back inside, sweaty, physically exhausted, I always came back in as exhausted mentally as I did physically, because the brain is continuously going 1,000 miles an hour. You're trying to pay attention to everything you're doing, make sure you didn't get anything snagged or damaged in your spacesuit, make sure your tethers didn't cross, make sure you didn't lose any hardware, make sure that your buddy was doing okay and that he wasn't getting in any trouble of any sort, and trying to beat the clock, because when you're outside on a spacewalk, you have a series of things you gotta do, and it's like the old TV show, Beat the Clock, where you have an amount of time to get everything done, and you really want to get it done, because if you don't, and you're trying to build something or you try to fix something like Tom did, then that's going to all ripple into the next day's spacewalks, and it's going to complicate the job for those guys that conduct that. And so, an incredible experience. You come inside totally exhausted and totally over the top with an emotional and physical high. And I frankly made the supper on just about every one of the days that I went out on spacewalks. That was to thank the rest of the crew who had been supporting us while we were outside having all that fun. And it was also a good way to get back into the ballgame for all the other things that we had to do in space.
So Colonel Akers or Dr. Godwin, would you mind adding to what your spacewalk and what you fixed or how that was for you? Either one of you, or both of you, please.
It's really hard to convey what it's like to do that. And I remember, and how you train, first of all, our whole training flow to go into space, in which there are huge, really wonderful, competent people thinking of all kinds of unique ways to get us trained. How do you train for doing a spacewalk? And so the water tank, Jerry's already talked about, is the closest we can get to simulating it. But even that doesn't really simulate what it's like. And so I remember the first time I only had two heard all that Jerry's had, but when we went outside the first time, my first thought was, and because we have the replicas, the cargo shuttle and the water tank and everything, I thought, this really looks familiar. And I was kind of amazed at that the way that different training we put together to replicate the real thing in space actually does a pretty darn good job. And some things are easier in the water tank. The drag of the water really helps stabilize. And an astronaut in a spacesuit is way more massive than just the astronaut by him or herself, because the student adds a lot. And in the water tank, that was very stable. And in real life, it all moved much easier. And all of a sudden, I started to stop, and oh man, our body really wants to keep on going. And that's the physics of momentum. It doesn't matter, that you're not feeling the effects of gravity. So I just remember it felt familiar, it felt different. There's a sense that this is not a time when I screw up because lots of people are watching. And it is so easy it is mentally challenging. And so if you had to stop and make yourself think, I'm going to look at this from space, just being out there in your own suits, which is kind of like your own space ship in a little bit of a way, and actually you can see the vehicle you came up in, you can see the Earth in the background. It's really an awesome thing to do, but not too much time to actually spend on that because you got to keep working. And keep in mind, somebody already mentioned, we go around the Earth every 90 minutes. That's a day cycle and a night cycle every time, and that's a big temperature change and lighting. But we would keep working all the time because we had helmet lights, we could turn on and off. And I had one flight. One of the 2 times I was out, I had to be with the sun angle on a mission, and my hands were getting so hot on the daytime side. And I thought, I think the glove heaters were failed on or something. But they weren't on, it was just the direct heat. I was glad to see us lose the sun and go through sunset and get cooler and actually night side. So just all these things to cope with, and it was different. And I was fortunate that on my first spacewalk, we were attached to the Mir space station. So we got to leave the shuttle cargo bay and go just a little bit onto the Mir, and there actually was an agreement that we couldn't go beyond a certain line because it wasn't our spaceship, and we were putting out some equipment that was going to detect the atmosphere around the space station, that we were picked up by a later shuttle crew. But we had a boundary we couldn't go beyond. But yeah, we actually got to a little bit down on the outside of the mission station. No, I don't have any, nothing went wrong, there's no gee whiz story. There's just, it is a lot of hard work, but an opportunity to get to do it.
I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I think my first memory once I got outside, and I wasn't really surprised because I've been warned about this, but as Linda mentioned, it's something you have to calibrate very quickly, and that's not having the water to resist your body that you've trained in for many hours. There's no water viscosity. So in the water, when you would move an object or yourself, if you wanted to stop, you just quit doing anything. Up in space, if you do something, you've got to take it out to stop. So any motion in one direction, you've got to resist it to stop your body the other way. And it doesn't take the fingertip force to move your mass, which is on the order of 350 or 400 pounds of mass. And so, and you adapt to that fairly quickly, which makes you very cautious when you're free floating. Now, if you put your feet in foot restraints, which I don't know if any of you watch spacewalks, we try to do every chance we can, because then your body is under control. Then it's easy to do almost anything. But Linda mentioned training, and I think we all felt very well trained the first time we went out on our first spacewalks. We had hours in the pool. And I think it's a good thing to point out to people. We get all the attention, astronauts, the people at NASA, flight directors, for a mission. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who support every space shuttle mission, every space station mission that go unheralded. You never know what they're doing, but it's not just a team effort, it's everybody working together. You cannot imagine the dedication of every individual at NASA in our space program. And it gives you something when I went out the first time in my spacesuit, I had a reporter afterwards say, weren't you scared to be out there, in a spacesuit? And I said, that never entered my mind, because I know all those guys, those spacesuit techs that work on that spacesuit. And I know they cared as much about my safety, so I never even worried about it. So I think every time that we see a space shuttle mission replayed, or hopefully someday we go back to the moon and Mars, the astronauts that go do that are going to be the ones you identify with and remember their name. But think about all those hundreds of thousands of other people, custodians, secretaries, not just all the engineers. And those are the people we're going to need in the future if we continue to explore space.
Failure story? Anybody that has a potty story must have other failure stories. I tell you, in my 25 years of...
Did you lose the $100,000 tool belt?
No.
No, not that one.
Not that one. But you've heard of Murphy's Law. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. There was a Kelso corollary to that. That anything can go wrong will go wrong, but on the worst possible mission. In this one flight, I was the spacewalk flight director. I was the EVA flight director. And we had trained for months to do this thing. It was to practice EVAs for space station. And I came in and we had prepared the spacecraft for the spacewalk. We had checked out the suits. I'd gone around the team and we had gotten the go for EVA to go to start the spacewalk. And I relayed that up to the flight crew that they could start the spacewalk. And they were in the airlock. Now the outer hatch of the airlock, Jerry could probably tell you more, but it's like a submarine hatch. It's got outer latches, maybe 10 or 12 outer gang latch hatches, all tied to common gear. And you rotate this handle, which retracts the outer hatches, like a submarine hatch, and then that hatch opens so you can go out into the cargo bay to your spacewalk. So I gave the go to EVA, and the astronaut depressurized the airlock, put the hand on the handle, and turned the crank, and it only turned about 15 degrees. Just a short distance. They called down and they said the hatch isn't open. It won't rotate the handle. And in my mind, the flight director is trained to handle 36 problems in a 10-minute period, to evaluate risk versus gain and prioritize failures. And so in my mind, immediately, I went, no problem, I'll have this solved in 10 or 15 minutes and it'll be out the hatch. That's my immediate thought. that I'll have this lit. We'll figure this problem out. But we didn't. It really surprised me. And we could not get that hatch open. We could not get the handle to turn. And it wasn't such a big deal for the EVA itself, but we have contingency EVAs. So the communication antenna, the robotic arm, the payload bay doors don't close for entry. We had contingency spacewalks we can go out to go do those things so we can safely configure the spacecraft and re-enter. So that's what we spent the next few days working on. How do we figure out how to get out the hatch when it won't open? Why did the hatch not open? Over a series of flights, a tiny set screw, you know how screws will loosen over time? It had backed out and backed out and backed out, little by little, mission by mission, until it got to Rob's flight. And then it backed all the way out and had jammed itself in the planetary gear. So it had nulled itself into the gears, so that when the gear got to the set screw, it blocked the handle from turning any further. A tiny little set screw. Over time it backed out and lodged itself in the gear so we couldn't get out the hatch. I was never surprised, I guess, over time that things would happen in space. The weirdest things seem to occur in space flight that we never trained for or expected but happened. And I learned over time that Murphy's Law really exists in space flight. And that was one time that we never did get to do the spacewalk because of one tiny little section.
Before we close today, you guys have been amazing. I got a list of questions that I know we would love to go on. Are there a few questions that we could take from our audience? My friend Josh, sitting anywhere nearby. There you are, sir. I know you've got a question. This seems like a very, very capable young man, all of you amazing folks on this panel. Would you stand and ask him a question, if you will?
Thank you. So, my question earlier was your personal experience. I think you told a lot about that. One of you mentioned how you're talking to some of the Apollo astronauts, and now that we're seeing the next generation with the current ISS astronauts and the astronauts who are going to be launching crewed missions with Falcon and Orion, how do you think that the next generation can take inspiration from you and going back to the moon, going to Mars, wherever you're going? Thank you.
Well, I'll try that. I think I got my inspiration from the Apollo days. I was fortunate enough to have a Apollo astronaut be our trainer when I first showed up at NASA in 1980, and he recently passed away at Alan Dean. Alan Dean walked on the moon in Apollo 12, and he basically taught me how to be an astronaut, because I didn't know how to be one when I went to the Johnson Space Center. He was the first one I ever saw, and I set out to emulate. I think for those new astronauts and taconauts and cosmonauts and all from around the world that are going to be part of the next great big dream to go back to the moon to stay or on Mars, I think we got to be there for them, support them, and teach them what we learned and teach them what went wrong for us, because they're going to make their own decisions on this, but at least we can give them our perspective about what to watch out for. And I know if they want to hear it, I'm certainly going to be there for them to give them my vision of what I did, so they can try to take some of those lessons and carry it forward.
Could I ask you to give this last closing statement of what you love to tell students when you're giving a talk to them?
Well, through my years at NASA and since, I always tried to focus on, we all were expected to go out and make public appearances, and I always tried to do mine to schools. Nothing against Rotary clubs or anything else, but I thought that I was intended to go talk to kids. Very early in my life, I I started making scrapbooks about spaceflight even before the first satellites were launched. I was inspired by spaceflight and captivated by the thoughts of flying rockets and satellites into space. In fact, I had done enough of that I had learned that it was scientists and engineers that were doing that work. And since a lot of the articles that I cut out of newspapers were written about local Indiana people who had gone to Purdue University, I knew that there was this place called Purdue University. Those graduating engineers and scientists. So I was in the 4th grade when those very first satellites were launched into space. And I decided then and there that I was going to go to Purdue, I was going to become an engineer, and I wanted to get involved in a country space program. I noticed I didn't say anything about being an astronaut, because there weren't any. The only ones that were around were Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers. But as I continued my education, our country's space program picked up a very rapid pace. I started to think, since I was going to be in the Air Force, I was an Air Force ROTC, and I was going to be going into the Air Force, I started to think about how I might tailor my Air Force career to allow me to maybe get into the astronaut program someday. And so I've always felt from a very early age that I had that type of motivation and insight into what I wanted to do. And so I've always tried to focus talking to young people, trying to encourage them to think about what they want to do, and to look at what their God-given talents and likes and dislikes are, and what courses they like, what ones they don't like, and how they might best apply those or make themselves best suited to follow certain types of career paths. And then talk to their parents and grandparents and teachers and figure out what they're going to do, set goals for themselves, and then by all means available, study hard and work hard to prepare yourselves for those curriculums or for those career avenues, and don't give up too easily when at first you don't succeed. Young people, unfortunately today, if they don't get immediate gratification and immediate success, they drop and press on to something else. And I think that is really selling themselves short, and unfortunately, it's something that hurts our country because we have a lot of very talented people that won't pursue those goals to completion and make the kinds of contributions that they could if they would be willing to do that. So throughout my career at NASA and what I'm doing now in retirement and through my 2 books, I'm laying out those same challenges to young people and hoping to encourage them to do great things with their lives and for the betterment of all mankind.
How about a big round of applause?
Since we're getting close to the end here, at least for this portion, I want to say one thing. I'll tell you another story. NASA is very generous when you get assigned to one of these flights. It's a life event, as you might expect. And they're very generous in the fact that you can send out invitations to everybody you've ever known in your life to come to Florida and watch you participate in this wonderful event that you're going to get to participate in. And I was told that watch out, if you invite 300 people, 299 are going to show up. with about 299 other people that you didn't invite. So there's a very large mob that shows up down in Florida prior to a launch. And of course, they don't know too much about it. And they get there in Florida, even though we wrote them this meticulous letter that says it's uncertain, there may be delays. Whatever you do, don't get non-refundable airline tickets. Of which nobody listens to that. So they get down there, and the local newspaper in Florida is filled with articles about a space shuttle launch in 2 or 3 days. And if you read the text of the articles, it's never going to happen because they've got this problem, the weather's going to be horrible. And every launch I ever went for, the 4 that I did, this was filled with. Of course, all your 600 guests are reading this, and they're all wondering, because now they realize they don't know what's going to happen three days from now, other than if it doesn't launch, they're going to get a lot of trouble. And they would like to really come to talk to you, but you're not available. Which is a really good thing for us. And I'd like to acknowledge there's 2 people in the room who had to deal with it, and that's That's my wife, Lois Richards, and Susan Walker over there, our spouses. They were the ones that had to deal with the 600 people there at lunch, and this was a job they didn't sign up for, but one that they did. It's our spouses who had to put up with a lot, including being here today to hear this story that for 1,000 times. So please.
I once heard another astronaut say that his wife says, I always feel a little bit better when my husband is on Earth. Was that something that you guys felt at times, or did it become routine for you as well?
Well, I have to say, watching the Friends, it's like family. And that is a wonderful family to be a part of. They're bright, they're smart, they're fun, they're funny. You have to have a sense of humor to fly in space. I mean, who's going to tell the commander that his butt's hanging out? So they're a wonderful group of people to be a part of. And I feel very blessed to have magnificent friends in this country and around the world that have come from our space program. The international aspects, which Dick touched on, are particularly important to us. You know, I was a Cold War warrior on the defense side of the business, but I never thought about the Russians the same way after I met them face to face. And heard about their children and their grandchildren and their wishes and their dreams. And I feel the same way about the taikonauts, the Chinese astronauts. So I feel especially blessed to be a part of this fine organization. And Earl, thank you for what you've done.
This is toward the astronauts. Would you do this again? No, that ain't good enough. But I mean, really, would you do this again? If they signed you up right now for Mars, would you go? Jerry says he would. Charlie, would you go? What about it, Nick?
Of course.
Of course. How about it? Absolutely. You made it here to Bonne Terre, you go to Mars, right? Okay. Very good. Listen, let's give them all a huge
So go forth, do hard things, students, and be that generation that takes us back to the moon and onto Mars.